Hi everybody, the following presentation is going to give you a basic insight into A-level textiles. The awarding body, the exam board, is Edexcel and you can find them online. They are also called Pearson qualifications, and if you want to look at the whole of the specification, then if you just type in art and design under subjects, then it will give you textiles within that as a subsection, and it will give you absolutely everything, not just a sort of broad overview, which I'm going to do today. In a nutshell, the A-level textiles course is over 2 years. It's 60% coursework and 40% exam, exactly the same as GCSE. It's got a longer exam. The exam is 15 hours, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more detail on one of the next slides, but just wanted to go through a couple of things that you will expect from textiles. The course is structured, but it does allow you to study what you are interested in. So from a textile perspective, it could be that you would like to go into fashion textiles. It could be that you want to go into constructed textiles or 3D textiles. It could be that you don't really know and you want to do a whole load of different textile experimentations and then decide in year 13. That's all fine. We will teach you everything that you need to know. Part of textiles is using ICT and learning how to produce your own fabric designs. That's called surface pattern design. But everybody will have their own style. So year 1 really is learning techniques and experimenting with different materials and tools and processes. So a lot of it will be learning. It's not all about using the sewing machine. It will be taking different fabrics and seeing what they can do. It will be trying and experimenting and things going wrong before they go right. So it starts off as quite a fun course. You will be having deadlines to meet. We set projects and sub-projects on a 2-week rota system, so you will know exactly what you're doing with a project brief, but obviously within that you can choose which artists and which practitioners you would like to work with. Textiles is a strength of the school. The art and design subjects have some of the best nationally recognised results, so you are going to be coming into a department that is working at a high level. The expectation and rigour can be a stress and a strain to begin with, but you will be working with teachers that are passionate about their subject and want you to do the very best you can. So if you follow the guidelines and you take on board advice from members of staff that are in the department, you are going to do very well. You'll learn about life skills when you're taking textiles. You'll learn about meeting deadlines. You'll learn the need for excellent communication. Obviously, you'll be learning to do all sorts of things that you haven't done before. Deadlines is quite a big thing in art and design. There will be times when you meet the deadlines easily. There will be times when you struggle to meet the deadlines and you need extra time. We are flexible, but 9 times out of 10 we would like you to meet those deadlines. So that's something to bear in mind in terms of how you manage your time each week. There will be some guidance on how you slot in your independent time in order to meet those deadlines. You can choose how you want to structure the course. We have a full-time art technician, Mrs. Tebbs, who also helps out with textiles, and starting points can come from you. We'll talk a little bit about the bridging work and how you start your course. I think it's slide 5, but we'll have a look at that a little bit later. So coursework is 60%, which is a good proportion, and that happens over 2 years that you are in year 12 and year 13. That's up until February. So what you choose to do and how you choose to do it is actually quite important. Your project theme needs to be really broad so that you can insert subsections of projects in there so that you cover the assessment objectives. The assessment objectives are the same as they were at GCSE, so you'll be expected in textiles to record from observation, so that will be a small element of drawing, although it's really not that much compared with art and design. It will be recording using photos. That's quite a big part of it. It could be photographing items that you've chosen, but we predominantly use the photography part of it to photograph final pieces, particularly if you are going down the fashion route. So once you've made a costume or an item of clothing, we use models and makeup to showcase that piece of work that you have done. So quite a big part of it will be learning to take good compositions using your phone or using one of our cameras that we've got in the department. So that's the different sorts of type of observations that you will be looking at. You'll be expected to look at historical and contemporary practitioners, so textile designers that you're interested in. So it could be historical textile design, it could be looking back at fashion throughout history, but we do a lot of work on contemporary artists that are still around today, because if I'm honest, they tend to be a little bit more exciting. But the expectation is that you do look at both historical and contemporary textile designers. You will need to go out and make some independent visits, maybe to some textile museums or art galleries, fashion shows. It's going to be completely up to you, but it will link with your theme. In terms of assessment, we'll come on to that in a bit more detail in another slide, but the assessment points are every 2 weeks, and you will have a series of teacher assessment, student assessment and peer assessment that will give you information on how you are doing in each assessment objective, and that will give you information also on what you then do in order to improve every 2 weeks and to meet your target grades. When we do expect you to keep what's called an independent learning log, and what that does is it's a record of teacher feedback, student feedback. You choose what you want to accomplish during the lesson, and it's a form of communication, so that where classes are split, where there's 2 teachers teaching a subject, it gives the members of staff an insight into what's being discussed lesson by lesson, and it also gives you a record of what has been said during that lesson as well. So the exam is 40% of the overall grade that you will be getting, so it's significant. The exam paper is given out, whatever exam board students are working from all over the country, it's given out on or around the 1st of February in year 13. So you will then have 8 weeks to prepare from a starting point that is given to you on the exam paper. There will be a choice of how you incorporate what you want to do into that exam unit, but you will be then preparing over 8 weeks a series of work that can be collated into sketch pads, it can be collated onto A2 boards, A1 boards, it can be presented in any format you like, but it will need to be different from coursework. At the end of the 8 weeks preparation time, you walk into a 15-hour exam, which, if I'm honest, sounds a lot, but it won't be, it will fly by, and it's only one set of work, a 5-hour period more than GCSE. So you will have probably 3 days off timetable that will have a little bit of a gap in between it, or actually it could be that the timetable says that you do your units of work on a Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday with no gap in between. It totally depends on the rest of the exams, but it will be a 15-hour exam and you will need all of that time. If I'm honest, you will be so pleased when you walk into the exam, because you will know exactly what you're doing. We will structure the 8 weeks preparation time so that you walk into that exam fully prepared, and you will enjoy your exam. And 15 hours, you can get quite a lot done in 15 hours. So your overall assessment objective 4 final outcome hopefully will look really spectacular. We talked a little bit about assessment already. But I'm going to go into expectations, because the expectations are that you do meet the 2-week assessment points, and you, like I was saying earlier on, you might need a little bit of help and advice on how to get those deadlines met. So what we do with some students is we look at the timetable and we block out slots so that independent time is used in those slots, so that students get art and design work or textiles work done. It might be that you occasionally need to work over your lunch times. It might be occasionally that you need to stay after school to one of the intervention sessions. We do put on some Saturday sessions, but if you've time managed throughout the 2 years, you probably don't need to use these slots above and beyond what you do. We try and encourage students to work hard while they're in school. 9 times out of 10 you won't need to take work home if you do that, but there will be the odd occasion when you're working on a tight deadline, particularly during the exam, when you're going to need to just push a little bit more in order to get those assessment points met. In terms of expectations of the department, it's basically not rocket science. You meet the deadlines, you respect the equipment and materials, you listen to advice, communicate well, respect others, keep your equipment and materials tidy, keep your folder tidy, keep your independent learning logs and assessment sheets in a wallet, have it accessible at all times. So it's everything that that you would expect, and it's not that different from GCSE. I've emboldened and put in red that you don't need to buy a sewing machine, although some students do like to buy their own sewing machine, so it's familiar. I would not make that purchase yet, because you don't know whether you are going to stay working on a sewing machine or whether your work evolves into something else at this time. So we've got sewing machines in the department, so I would advise you don't buy a sewing machine. I would probably recommend that halfway through the course you get yourself some bits of equipment when you are deciding what you want to do for your final outcomes. It might be that you need to buy some material, some dyes, some different sorts of threads, but obviously you won't know at this moment in time what you are going to be working on. So I would advise not buying anything until we get at least a month into the course. So we've set you some bridging work to do, and it is really important that you do get on to starting that as soon as possible. We will expect that you bring the bridging work with you to the first lesson back after the summer holidays. If you have any issues with what to choose in terms of you dictating your project, then please don't hesitate to email me. My email address is in the top left-hand corner of this slide. Some students have started the bridging work already and started to format what they would like to look at. And I've been communicating with various students already to help them make their project really, really broad. Now, if you can imagine doing the same project theme for what effectively is a year and a half, you're going to need to choose something really, really broad. So, for example, if you chose seed heads as something that you're interested in, or flowers, it's not broad enough. What you've got to do is choose a project title that enables you to have sub-projects within a huge theme. So, for example, if you wanted to look at seed heads and natural forms, open your project out into the environment, because that gives you sub-projects to look at. So within that, you've got seed heads, you've got moss, bark, fungi, everything to do with the natural environment. But then you could look at the man-made environment, look at architectural details, doorways, places of worship, different habitats, and there's a whole plethora of things that you could look at. So have a little look on Pinterest and see some of the boards that I've got on my account, and trawl through and see what you would like to do for your project. But bear in mind that that project has to last you a year and a half. Now, part of the bridging work is to format a spider diagram type of ICT document that showcases what you want to look at with annotations. So what I would do is have a go at doing that and maybe pass it through me by email, so that I can make sure that you've chosen something that is broad enough. But have a look at the bridging work and start that as soon as you can. If you would like to use equipment and materials that you are not quite familiar with, I would choose something else for the moment, because obviously in this situation we don't know what we can and can't get for you. But email me if you have any questions or queries about the bridging work. You could start with something very simple like drawing and recording using photography, because you're likely to access that. It doesn't have to be textile work using a sewing machine. It can be work with materials and equipment that you've already got, but looking at a textile designer, that's all fine too. Hopefully that's given you a brief introduction to A-level art textiles. We are really excited about welcoming new textile students and art students into the department. You're going to have a really great time. You're going to work hard, but also you're going to feel the benefits of learning really quickly and being taught by teachers who are incredibly passionate about their subjects. And we want you to achieve. It's really important that you do the bridging work, but get onto the bridging work, do it, and then have a bit of a rest so that you're nice and refreshed for the new academic year. And I wish everybody a really lovely summer. If you've got any questions or queries about the presentation, please do email me. I'm on email 24/7 pretty much, so if you email me, I will get back to you within 48 hours, and we can ping emails back and forth and use me as a form of communication and a source of getting what you want for your project started for that bridging work. And I think that's it. Like I say, if you've got any questions, do email me, and hope everybody has a really wonderful summer.